The white-haired old man carefully picked up the bright red scroll from the silver plate before lifting it up for everyone in the auction to see. He smiled and said, "This ruler technique is called the six-joint body flowing ruler, a D-class middle-level dough technique. It was created a couple of centuries ago by the six-joint Zunjahe who had dominated the continent back then. This ruler technique is a dough technique that made him renowned. Its strength is extremely strong. The only imperfection is that a ruler technique is somewhat unorthodox. Unless one has studied this weapon for decades, it is likely that one will have difficulty controlling it. TL, Zunjahe, respectful term that refers to a dough zun." Numerous exclamations sounded within the auction ground when they heard the name of six-joint Zunjahe. A dough zun, that was a level that was extremely far from everyone present. Anything that was related to this level would undoubtedly see its value soar. Hence, there was still quite a number of people who were somewhat interested despite this weapon being somewhat unorthodox. Why? Are you interested? The little fairy doctor by the side involuntarily laughed when she saw Xio Yan suddenly sit up straight. She naturally knew that the weapon that Xio Yan specialized in was that enormous black ruler. Moreover, this six-joint body flowing ruler was of quite a high level. Its origin was also extraordinary. It was only natural for Xio Yan to be interested. Xio Yan's eyes stared intently at the bright red scroll. He smiled and nodded. The heavy Xuan ruler had been used by him for quite a number of years and he was already used to it. He did not wish to change to other weapons, but other than the flame-splitting tsunami, a pure offensive skill, he did not have any other ruler dough techniques he could use. Although he had mastered a kind of ruler technique that rolled endlessly like a large ocean through his own comprehension, this kind of ruler technique was far too immature. He would need to refine it 1,000 times over in order for it to be useful. Hence, it did not possess any great importance to the current Xio Yan. Therefore, the six-joint body flowing ruler that had appeared in this place suited Xio Yan's needs. It was just that he did not know how great its strength would be once he successfully practiced it. This ruler technique dough technique auction price is set at 1,800,000. Any increase in bid must not be less than 10,000. The white-haired old man smiled and spoke. He glanced at the auction grounds where private conversations had erupted. "So, everyone, please place your bid." A temporarily calm followed after the white-haired old man's voice sounded. 1,800,000 was considered a large sum for some small factions, while some large factions preferred to wait until the end before deciding the conclusion at one go. It was because of this that such a silence occurred. The expression of the white-haired old man did not change when faced with this completely silent situation. A warm smile remained on his face as his gaze slowly swept around 1,830,000. The silence continued for around half a minute before it was broken by a bid that was transmitted from behind. This bidding price had just sounded when it appeared to have triggered a chain reaction. Bids were cried out one after another. Within less than 5 minutes, the price was raised to 1,980,000. This was the highest price that this auction had seen since the beginning, 2,500,000. The sudden leap of price immediately caused an uproar to resound across the entire auction. Numerous gazes immediately followed the sound of the voice and glanced over. Finally, they stopped on a human figure that was completely wrapped in a black robe seated in the front VIP seats. The person who shouted the bid was naturally Xio Yan. He had quite the interest in this six-joint body flowing ruler. However, he did not have too many gold coins on him. After adding them up, there was only at the very most around 3 million or so. Yet, he clearly knew that it was pointless to slowly add bids in this kind of auction. Since he wanted to compete, he should just issue a high price that his competitors would not dare to match. Due to that pill refinement storm back then, and the little fairy doctor by his side, the current Exio Yan was someone whom others in the VIP seats paid attention to. Hence, the moment he opened his mouth, many surprised gazes from the VIP seats were thrown over. Exio Yan acted as though he had not noticed the many gazes that contained mixtures of various emotions. He only threw his gaze toward the auction stage and waited for others to increase the bid. He knew that quite a number of people in the VIP seats would be interested given the attraction of this 6-joint body flowing ruler. This 2,500,000 price might have a great deterrence for an ordinary person, but it was nothing to these extremely rich large factions, 2,550,000. As Exio Yan had expected, a voice quickly followed not long after he shouted his price. His gaze followed and voice and looked over. The person who had shouted the new price was a large middle-aged man with a burly appearance. The eyes of this person were fiery hot as he looked at the auction stage. Clearly, he greatly coveted this 6-joint body flowing ruler. 3 million. Exio Yan spoke in a faint voice and threw all of his fortune in one go. Currently, he only had this many gold coins. However, he did not feel any guilt. If he took out some random high-tier medicinal pills from his storage ring, their value would definitely not be much lower than this D-class scroll. Nevertheless, he was intending to leave those medicinal pills until the end to compete for the Bodhisattva body transformation saliva. Hence, he did not wish to waste them midway through. Therefore, unless he had no other choice, it would be best if he did not take out any medicinal pills. Exio Yan's ruthless increase in his bid had caused the expression of that middle-aged man to change. He was just about to harden his heart and continue when a couple of people beside him extended their hands and pulled him back. Offending a tier 6 alchemist and an elite Zong for just the scroll of a ruler technique was not worthwhile. The large middle-aged man woke up from the wild heat that was brought about by the 6-joint body flowing ruler after he was stopped by his companions. His gaze turned to Exio Yan's side and coincidentally saw the indifferent eyes of the little fairy doctor. His entire body trembled as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. All he could do was bitterly return to his seat. 3 million, is there any higher price? The white-haired old man smiled as he looked around and asked. This price did not exceed the worth of the 6-joint body flowing ruler, but he also knew just what Exio Yan and the little fairy doctor represented. An ordinary person would not dare to go all out to bid against them even if they wished to. It seemed that they would have to lose out a little on the auction of this 6-joint body flowing ruler. The white-haired old man's words reverberated through the auction grounds. There was still no reply after a while. Looking at the way Exio Yan bid both times, it was clear that he was intending to obtain the 6-joint body flowing ruler at all cost. An ordinary person could not compete with him, while the people on the VIP seats did not wish to form enmity with him due to Exio Yan's status as a tier 6 alchemist and the little fairy doctor's strength. Their ultimate aim was the Bodhisattva body transformation saliva. Offending a tier 6 alchemist and a Zong here was not a wise act. The silence continued in the auction ground for around half a minute before the white-haired old man helplessly shook his head. He was just about to lower his small hammer when a voice suddenly sounded, 3,100,000. The sudden bid that was cried out caused many people to feel startled. Their gazes immediately followed the voice and glanced over. Some surprise surged within their eyes. Why did this fellow launch a competing bid against that mysterious alchemist? Xiao Yan's brows were tightly knit together when that bid was cried out. His gaze looked over only immediately feel stunned. A strange expression surfaced on his face. It was for no reason other than the one who issued the bid was not a stranger but rather his second brother. Xiao Li. The little fairy doctor and Zedai Yan were both astounded by this unexpected turn of events. The both of them smiled. It was unexpected that these two brothers had ended up competing with each other. In front of the many stunned gazes, Xiao Li, who had stood up, revealed a cold and stern face covered with a helpless, bitter smile. He knew that issuing a bid at this moment was clearly making things difficult for that mysterious alchemist. However, this ruler technique was clearly quite strong. He might not specialize in ruler techniques, but he had to keep his third brother in mind. He knew that his third brother's weapon was a large ruler. The latter's strength would definitely increase greatly if this technique landed in his hands. Hence, after repeated hesitation, he was finally unable to endure any longer and ended up shouting a prize. Beside Xiao Li, Suqian's expression was also one that was helpless. He knew that Xiao Li's bid was because of Xiao Yan. However, they will have offended that mysterious alchemist by bidding. Most importantly, offending that mysterious alchemist was equivalent to offending that white-clothed lady. Although he felt a helplessness in his heart, Suqian did not attempt to stop Xiao Li. He knew that Xiao Li was always thinking of Xiao Yan and would naturally not easily give up such an opportunity to allow Xiao Yan's strength to soar. This was even if doing this might offend the Tier Che alchemist and an elite Zong. Xiao Yan shook his head in front of the many gazes, feeling neither able to laugh nor cry. He mused a little and naturally knew why Xiao Li wanted to purchase this ruler technique. His heart was involuntarily touched. Since Xiao Li wanted to compete, Xiao Yan would naturally not fight with him. After all, the thing would eventually end up in his hands regardless of who won. He immediately shook his head slightly and slowly shrank back into his chair in front of the many stunned gazes. The faces of quite a number of people in the VIP seats were stunned when they saw that Xiao Yan had actually given up competing. A moment later, some factions with enmity for Xiao Gate immediately began to throw their gloating eyes toward Xiao Li. From the way they saw it, this action of Xiao Li would definitely offend that mysterious alchemist. In this way, the little worry that came from how the little fairy doctor treated Xiao Li courteously back then instantly disappeared. Currently, they need not worry about Xiao Gate cooperating with that mysterious alchemist. Xiao Li was also startled when he saw that the mysterious alchemist had given up. His heart slowly sunk. The worst situation had just occurred. Xiao Li's eyes exchanged glances with Suqian by the side and the two of them softly sighed. The corner of their mouths contained a somewhat bitter taste. Even someone as strong as Suqian could not help but quietly sigh in his heart given that they had offended the Tier Che alchemist and an elite Zong. It was natural that no one else in the VIP seats would bid after Xiao Li had bid. This was because quite a number of people were extremely happy to see Xiao Gate offending the mysterious alchemist. Hence, they would naturally not intervene. From the way they saw it, this ruler technique had already become a hot potato. Anyone who pulled it into their hands would draw the enmity of the mysterious alchemist. Under this attitude of everyone, that the class middle level 6 joint body flowing ruler was easily backed by Xiao Li.